Hello everybody, and welcome back to my War Thunder Tips and Tricks series. Today we're going to be looking at engaging from the sides and rear of a tank. In the last episode we looked at how to engage from the front, and really engaging from the sides and rear isn't that much different. You still go through 4 steps. Do I want to engage? Does it know I'm there? However, that's about where it changes. Your third step, instead of aiming for weak spots and aiming for less armored areas, you're basically just going to be aiming for modules and crew. What this means is that you need to know the tank anatomy of what you're fighting. And if you don't, you're going to be spending a lot of time wasting shots at basically shooting what you don't know. And what you're looking for is ammo, crew. If you're firing from the rear, sometimes the engine. Basically you're looking for the vulnerable areas of a tank that aren't necessarily where they're armored. And then of course, you range and shoot after you've found where you're going to aim. So it's not really that much different. And fighting from the sides and rear is very similar. Side shots are they're probably the easiest shots you're going to get in the game. They are essentially gimmies. Very few tanks actually have real side armor. And there isn't a big engine block, there isn't a whole lot of stuff in the way. You're basically, as soon as you get through the side armor, which is typically pretty thin, you're gonna get into the real meat of the tank. The crew, the ammunition racks, fuel tanks, just stuff that you don't want to lose in your tank if you're driving it. So the thing you need to change when you are fighting from the sides or rear is, instead of aiming for where there's no armor, you aim for what is the most vulnerable, because pretty much the entire side of a tank is going to be without armor. Now, priorities depend on what ammunition you're using, and I'll talk about this in my ammunition video when I go over what each ammunition is good and bad for. But essentially, if your ammunition is not very good at taking out ammo racks, things like heat, APDS are really good at taking out ammo racks, but things like HESH are not. You want to aim for ammo racks if they are going to be detonated more likely than not. So if you've got a heat or an APDS shell, hit ammo racks. If you're not, you should aim for crew. HESH shells are phenomenal at taking out crew. They do a lot of internal damage. Same with APHE shells. With those types of shells, you're going to be looking more for where's the gunner, where's the driver, where do I hit all of them at one time. Typically, in your standard tank, you have your driver and your radio operator sitting in the hull, and then your loader, gunner, and commander in the turret. This means that if you want to take out a tank quickly, you need to hit all 5 of those members. So you need to hit in between them if you're using an APHE shell, which most tanks do use in this game. APHE shells you should launch slightly in front of the gunner. This will ensure that the gunner's taken out, and usually it will also hit the head of the driver and the radio operator and the feet of the loader and the commander, killing all 5 people, or at least 4 of them. With things like heat, APDS, and solid shot, you need to pick out your targets more because they don't have a big area of effect. So you need to either go for the gunner or the driver. What this means is you need to decide, is the tank, is it running away from me? Will I be able to reload in time to get a second shot in? It's kind of on the fly stuff like that. If it's running away from you, you need to take out the driver. If it's sitting still and there's no cover nearby, take out the gunner, and then take out the driver with your follow-up shot. If you're fighting from the rear, remember that the engine block is a lot of steel. Figure it's a nearly impenetrable amount of steel, because very few shells can actually go through the engine block and hit the crew compartment in front. However, things like high-tier heat and high-tier APDS can actually go through the rear armor and still go through the engine block and into the crew compartment. This is very effective at possibly taking out the engine, transmission, and the driver, and maybe the gunner in the front. That being said, with APHE and other large area of effect things, you want to hit the rear of a turret, because it'll kill everyone in the turret, and it will give you a nice follow-up shot in the engine. Another thing to remember when engaging from the rear is that there's only a maximum of 2 fire kits that you can use. Excuse me. So if you hit the engine block 3 times and set it on fire, that means that you can basically run away from the tank because it will eventually kill itself through the fire. So, you know, when you're engaging from the side and rear, your big things to look for are ammo, crew, and engine. And really, depending on what type of shell you're using, it's going to decide what of those you're going to engage first. So, just like engaging from the front, you walk yourself through the steps. Do I want to engage? Does it know I'm there? Finding the vulnerable spots, taking out, you know, ammo, taking out the crew, taking out whatever, you know, and then when you finally figured out what you're going to shoot at, you range in and shoot. It's pretty simple. It's not that big of a change, but you also do want to remember that there are tanks that have actual side armor, things like the IS-3, the Mouse. These tanks have serious side armor and can bounce and eat up shots if you shoot them in the wrong places. Especially tanks like the Mouse, where they've got a lot of stuff inside of the tank that can eat up shots. You really need to be efficient with your shots when you fight these types of tanks. A good rule of thumb is to take out the gunner and then work on ammo racks if you don't know what you're doing, if you've never fought the tank before, or if it's something that you're not really comfortable with. And also always remember, it's okay to leave a fight. If you don't think that you can effectively engage something, even if it is from the side, don't engage it. Just find something else to engage. That's a pretty normal thing. So that's about all I had. It's the main difference between fighting from the sides and rear of a tank. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and the next video up is probably going to be either range finding or spotting. So look out for those.